Hello and welcome to an F5 introduction. It's a two-part series. This is part one. I'm just going to be covering a brief overview. Just to give you a brief introduction of myself. I'm from Midwest, Denver, Colorado. I serve as a network engineer for a large business with many different types of network equipment, including F5s as well as many other load balancers. We'll be covering a small amount of information in this part one series. Just give you a brief intro into F5. Along this course, if you are taking it, it should give you a general overview. I hope to and anticipate I'm creating an advanced series into the F5. This one just covering install and overview and knowledge of the F5, opposed to more advanced where we would be covering GUI and command line interface. Hope not to disappoint you from that overview, but hope if you are taking this course, you are planning on deploying an F5 or plan on utilizing it or gaining additional knowledge maybe you don't have. Let's take a look here. So load balancers. We have many types of load balancers, or many types of vendors. I would say all the load balancers pretty much react the same or are configured to do the same type of feature, and that is to manage traffic. We do have the F5 who has LTMs and GTMs, global traffic managers, and local traffic managers, depending on the size of your business. You may use it for different types of applications, different types of servers, and they're just one type of vendor that has or has created load balancers. As we see with Cisco, Cisco's dominant in routing and switching, but they also have branched out into load balancers. We see that with their local directors or Cisco ACEs. Some of you may have worked with them, very similar to the F5s and how they handle traffic and how they load balance traffic. Same with Citrix NetScalers. Very similar to the other three, just different features, different GUIs. And Radware, believe it or not, has produced a load balancer or traffic manager to assist and give you different options. So if you thought that F5 was the only one that produces load balancers, or if you've worked with one of these other vendors, they're very similar in nature. And I have worked with all four types of vendors. I believe I've worked with a couple extras, and I've had the opportunity to work with Cisco and Citrix and Radware Direct and F5. It would take some additional years of experience there to see which one is better, which one you like, which one is you're more comfortable with. Some are focused more on command line, some are focused more on the GUI interface. It's just up to you as far as which one you would like, which one is priced better, which one suits you better. So it depends clearly on your business needs, from small to large to enterprise. Just completely depends on your business and what you're looking for. Again, if you learn F5, you should be able to quickly adapt to Cisco. You should quickly be able to adapt to Citrix, and you should be able to adapt to Radware. Very similar. So let's talk about just general overview setup. Some of you may not know what an F5 looks like. Here on the PowerPoint here, you can see a F5 physical LTM, the smaller versions. This is just typical setup. Here you have end user desktops traversing just general internet. F5s are considered layer 3 devices. They pass and route traffic. And then you have servers here. You have server farms or servers themselves set up, or however you're set up. You could have one server and multiple VMs on that box. F5s can be managed by systems engineers, network engineers, systems or system admins or network admins. Different organizations divvy up the resources and can be managed by either one. I've seen and have been in F5 courses with systems engineers and network engineers. It depends on your business, where you're at. In my type of business, the F5s are managed by the network engineers opposed to the systems engineers. It's just dependent on how your management decides on the responsibility of where it starts and where it ends. And I'm glad from a network perspective. It breaks away from the typical router, switch, firewall. Some companies break up different equipment by different organizations. Mine keeps the load balancer within the networking group. So again, typical setup here. We do have server cluster here. Just have just a switch right here. Then you have your layer 3 device. 2 F5s. These are set up in an HA pair. What is an HA pair? HA is high availability. So you do have redundancy in case this one fails. This one will take over, and vice versa. If this one is primary and this one fails, it will not affect performance on this one here. Again, if this is the primary and this one fails, it will fail over to the secondary, and the secondary will continue to pass traffic until you repair that one. And again, users are traversing the internet trying to get to whatever public IP you have set or whatever IP you have it set at. You may have firewalls in front here of these F5s. You might have a network device in front of these devices, and you pass traffic down your F5. Then your F5 will pass traffic down to your servers. However you have those set up, one server, multiple servers, one server with multiple images on it. It depends completely on your setup, but this would be a typical setup within the environment. So let's dig a little deeper here and look at the external image of the F5. It is not a complicated device. It's just a standard piece of equipment. Some of you may never get to see an F5 if you host or work as a technician at a remote location. Sometimes you work for a company where it's broken up by hosting and engineers working remotely. So here you have, in the event that you don't get to see one or know what one looks like, this is the typical F5 layer LTM, local traffic management, and this is a big IP 3600 series. Typical for an F5 to have an LCD screen, some buttons that manage that LCD screen. Do have a fan, so you're going to need to allow, in the course of a data center, to allow air to flow through. You do have gig SFP cards where you can remove and add in the event that those fail. Here you have your Ethernet ports to plug into a switch or other type of device, or if you go direct from the F5 to your servers, you can manage it there. You have a console cord here, which would be a male DB9 cable you're going to need to. You also have your HA cable, your high availability cable, which will allow for failover for your F5. If you run it into a single setup, that's where you would ignore that. If you have a pair of F5s, you would connect them up together using this failover cable. Of course, you have the management connection here. So in the event you need access to this F5 outside a local means, and you also have USB, and that'll be important if you run into a recovery situation or if you need to try to get access to that. Password recovery, the USB is useful. Again, just brief overview: management, console, access, Ethernet ports, gig ports, and your LCD. Your buttons here to navigate that LCD, and we'll talk later a bit about that later on in the lesson with regards to manual setup. And you have your Ethernet ports and failover cable. So requirements for this course. F5 does have a temporary trial software. In order for you to observe or see the F5, and we're going to need to download that. You are going to need VMware Player. It is free. Go out and download that. If you already have a copy of VMware, that's great. Otherwise, you can purchase it, a little bit pricey, but F5 will run on VMware Player. So once you have VMware Player, you're going to go out and this site, f5.com trial, and download F5 software. So let's go ahead and head off to the downloads, where I will walk you through download and installing the F5 product.